Dear students, and today we will see about the gas exchange. And as we know very well about the gas exchange is for mainly on the respiratory system, where the consumption of oxygen and elimination of carbon dioxide, and it depends upon the number of times when you breathe. So that proportional to your longevity. For example, the animal, which is a tortoise, lives so long ago, and then that lives for a while. So in our system, we can easily see about the amount of breath or taking the oxygen or breathing. Um, that may vary when the human to different animals. So when they compare, when that increasing the aging, you have less and less of the breathing. In other words, if the tortoise lives so long, so it breathes only 4 times per minute. Okay, and in New York Times, I'll just show the document camera. So in New York Times in February 1947, Dr. Barrage, and he did some experiment, and he published in 1951. So he discovered that slow in breathing calm your mind, body, and soul. So it directly proportional to the breathing. This is the some sort of an isolation chamber, and which is the equalizing chamber. That's what they did. So in the equalizing chamber, the amount of air which is consumed and eliminated is going to be neutralized in such a way that the tuberculosis patients or any other lung disease, and they could able to maintain in a proper health condition. So that's the one aspect. The another aspect is they did with the less breathing, and the body cells are getting equalized amount of oxygen, and all tissues should be distributed the equal amount of oxygen. Then the cells seems to be healthy. If you are not supplying the oxygen demand to the tissues, then the body tissues become damaged, and that's why the whole process they interpret in a way that the amount of breathing is very important. Okay, so the amount of gas exchange in different animals, let us see here. On in a man, it's going to be 18 times per minute, and monkey it is going to be 32 times per minute. Elephant, tortoise, and snake, they have a less than the breathing time, and the longevity that directly are the inversely proportional to breathe, meaning longevity and breathe is less than human. So for these animals, if they live long, but they breathe less than human beings per minute rate. So let us see on to the topic today. What we want to see is the gas exchange, which is the anatomy of the organs which is involved, and then we will also see the chemistry. In the chemistry, we will see oxygen and how the oxygen is binding with the hemoglobin, because hemoglobin is the protein that carries the oxygen from lungs to different parts of the body or tissues, and from tissues the hemoglobin carries the carbon dioxide and then back to the lungs. So the carbon dioxide, hemoglobin, and oxygen put together, they form, to maintain the pH of the blood as well as the body fluid. And very important thing is the hemoglobin is combined with the carbon dioxide in the form of bicarbonate. Then how this bicarbonate plays a major role in maintaining the pH, that we will see in this class. The metabolism, we should know about what is metabolism. Metabolism is nothing but the tissues consume oxygen, or the consumption of oxygen and production of carbon dioxide. And this part, the consumption of oxygen and production of carbon dioxide, the event which is taking place in between That is called metabolism. In other words, you might have studied the metabolism is a combination of anabolism and catabolism. The anabolism is the synthesis of biomolecules, and the catabolism is the breakdown of those molecules. So in that construction of a biomolecule, like a protein or carbohydrate or lipids, and also the breakdown of these molecules of carbohydrates, protein, and lipid, they also produce carbon dioxide. So for those process we call together, we call is the metabolism. So metabolism is a combination of anabolism and catabolism. So in this case, the oxygen is essential to break down of the body, the biomolecule, as well as the synthesis of the biomolecules. The energy is required. That energy is coming from the the electron transport chain that is going to the oxygen. In other words, the oxygen is acting as an electron acceptor. So this, without oxygen, the body cannot survive. There's no life. So the acquisition of oxygen and the removal of carbon dioxide, and these together we are going to study in gas exchange class. Now let us see about the origin of oxygen. Where this oxygen is coming from. So if you think the oxygen is coming from the air, from where? From where? From where? The air from where? Now, it's coming from the photosynthesis of plants. Photosynthesis, as you know very well, is the photosynthesis is the process where in presence of sunlight, the green leaves of the plants in the earth, and they use carbon dioxide from the air as well as the water when they absorb from the root, and they synthesize starch or sugar. At that time, they eliminate oxygen. So that's why you say carbon dioxide and water in presence of sunlight, and PS means is a photosynthesis, and that is occurring in the plant kingdom, in the leaf, on the earth, in all the plant kingdom, and they produce of sugar as well as oxygen. When they use the carbon dioxide and water, and they eliminate oxygen in the process of producing sugar. And this oxygen is the one what we breathe. So without plant, no oxygen. And without plant, we cannot live. So that's what we want to know clearly, to preserve more plants in this world, to keep our world green. Okay. So let us see how this sugar, and then that is the oxygen and carbon dioxide plays a significant role. Let's see about this metabolism. In the sugar molecule further is broken down in the tissues, or in the plant tissues, or any other biological tissues, or any other organisms. It undergoes sugar glycolysis process, and also the Krebs cycle process, followed by first glycolysis and followed by Krebs cycle. When they do this metabolic process or breakdown of sugar, we call it glycolysis. Lysis means breakdown, and glyco means starch or sugar. So here the sugar breakdown, the process, we call it as a glycolysis. So at that time, they eliminate much of electrons, which is coming out from the molecules from the sugar, and the orbitals and the atoms and molecules of sugar or sucrose or any other glucose in this case. So when these electrons is coming out, these electrons should go. Where these electrons will go when they broke down? So there must be some sort of acceptor for this electron. If you don't accept these electrons, the electrons are so dangerous, and that will induce the free radical changes. It will hinder it won't keep quiet. It will go nearby other molecules and then start a chain reaction, and that is a really pathogenesis. And that induces even the mutation, and that induces several drawbacks and induces diseases in humans. So we need to get these electrons should be out. The only way this electron is out, there's using an electron transport chain where inside the mitochondria, the electrons is pumped into the mitochondria. The mitochondria, where the oxygen, which is what we breathe, that will go into the mitochondria. And then the electrons are coming there into the mitochondria, and that is converted into water. So the rest of the amount is the whatever the carbon molecule from the sugar that is being converted to carbon dioxide, and that is being eliminated as one of the waste products. So in the mitochondria is using this oxygen and getting these electrons at the time when the transport of the electron transport chain intermediate from one to the other, when the electrons are moving and from this pathway, it eliminates energy. That energy is being captured by ADP and PI to form ATP. And the ATP is the energy currency for the body tissues as well as the body required. And also the water molecule, because the oxygen is being converted into water, and the ATP is produced, and carbon dioxide, which is coming from the Krebs cycle. So this is the way that, in short, it is a long step process. There are several enzymes in this process I am not discussing right now because that is a real biochemistry, intermediary metabolism. But in our context, today's topic is consumption of oxygen and elimination of carbon dioxide. So we should know where is the origin of oxygen. Oxygen is coming from plant kingdom and from the air, and then we breathe and getting into the tissues. In tissues, its sugars and other molecules broken down, and that is going to be an electron transport, and then the oxygen is consumed there to convert into water, and then the Krebs cycle product, the glycolysis and Krebs cycle product is going to be all the carbon molecule of sugar is converted into carbon dioxide. When the electron transfer from this process in the intermediate, it releases so much of energy, and that energy is being captured by ADP molecule with the phosphate, inorganic phosphate, to convert it to adenosine triphosphate, the ATP. So in nutshell, consumption of oxygen, getting into the electron transport chain, produce water, and then the Krebs cycle and sugar breakdown molecules and the other further product which is coming to carbon dioxide, and all is a metabolic product. Now, the carbon dioxide impact on the pH. The carbon dioxide which is produced in the tissues, that has a high impact on the pH of the body or the blood. Oxygen as an electron acceptor. As I mentioned before, plant photosynthesis, air, oxygen is coming in the air, and air, we are oxygen, we are breathing, and that is again getting into our tissue and to the mitochondria, where it act as an electron acceptor. Oxygen is acting as an electron acceptor. Where these electrons are coming from? These electrons are coming from the sugar breakdown or glycolysis as well as the Krebs cycle. Okay, Krebs cycle or TCA cycle. So the electrons, and this electron, suppose if you don't have oxygen, what will happen? These electrons are toxic, and that is going to affect our tissue and produce a mutation even for the production or the carcinogenesis or the cancer, because of these electrons won't keep quiet. It won't immediately mutate the nearby tissues and as well as the DNA, and thereby it can induce a certain lethal effect on that. So we need to have the oxygen. So if you want to hang someone in that, so they don't get enough oxygen, so the electron acceptor is not going to happen. I mean, that is the another way to explain how the tissues die or the whole organisms die without oxygen. And the same thing, when the carbon dioxide, that gives an impact on pH. So the carbon dioxide should be removed from the system. So that's what we have to have a gas exchange in our plan. How we will do it? Let us see. So there are different places where the oxygen is being taken up from our tissues and from our body, and then it is eliminated. For that, we have to know about the respiratory surface area. So different organisms, they have different types of respiratory surface area where the oxygen and carbon dioxide gas is exchanged. So we should know about the respiratory surface first. There are specialized sites for gas exchange. That is the gas exchange between organism and environment. Okay, so the specialized sites, that helps the organisms to take up the oxygen. So how far it is good, the sites are good. and then how they adapted for different animal for different environments. Some animals are living in water, and some of them are living in terrestrial or air breathing animals, and some of them are breathing in the outside air as well as inside the water. So depending upon that, that respiratory surface is being adapted. Let us see the 4 basic different gas exchange respiratory surface in this class. Okay. Number 1, skin. Skin is formed from the outside of the oxygen or the air and direct. This is the inside. This is the one example. I just had a skin surface where oxygen is getting inside this tissue and a carbon dioxide eliminated. So this, if it's a plain skin, the skin surface. So suppose if it is the water, this is exchange is easily can be taking place here, but not in the terrestrial. So the water living animals, always they keep the skin surface moist so that the oxygen can easily diffuse inside and carbon dioxide diffused out. Number 2, the gill. The gill also inside the water, right? The fish is living inside the water, where it is flooded with the excess of water is going through and passing by all this water. Okay, so the environment is water, so gill is floating on the water. So folding of this, see this folding, that provides a large surface area. When compared to skin, this folding will give more surface area. So the organism is being adapted. They'll breathe in the skin. Now they can also use more oxygen. Suppose the small animal, the skin is okay, but in the larger animal, they need for the large surface area, for the large volume of the tissues, and then the body area, surface area is more, so they demand more oxygen. So even this limited surface of the skin, outer skin, suppose if this is the animal and this is a small animal, the skin is okay. The large animal like this, the whole large animal, the skin surface is not enough to get the oxygen and gas exchange. So they demand more. For that, so even this area, so they have to adapt to have a folding of the gill, and then this gill will help to increase the surface area for the gas exchange. Now let us see the another one. In the outside is air. It's not water. Okay, so this is water. If it is outside, and then the same phenomena of folding, but that is present inside the body. This is inside the body. Okay, so this folding, but this is the air which is outside and it's coming inside, but there's several folding, and it helps the terrestrial animal can breathe oxygen or breathe air in the terrestrial environment, but at the same time they have to have is like a gill-like structure but present inside. So in the lung, it looks like this in a diagrammatic way. We will see a bit later. So, but the other animals also, the terrestrial adaptation is mainly of more oxygen or the air, which is excess there, and that should be maintained for the large part of these animals. Let us see on 4th one, which is on the air outside, but directly, it is just like a tubular thing, but it is coming directly and distribute to the cells. And this is inside the insect, and this is outside the air. So the trachea, we call it the trachea of the insects. And here the trachea and lung are terrestrial adaptations. Trachea and lungs are terrestrial adaptations. Okay. So the air, which is directly coming into the trachea and distributed to the cells. These are cells. The dark one is the nucleus, and these are the cells. So there is no circulatory systems involved in the insect. The air is directly getting into the tube, into trachea, and then directly diffuses out of trachea to the cells. You won't find any blood or hemoglobin or anything is carrying the oxygen or the air into the tissues. So it is a direct contact of the air to the cells. That is the insect. So the trachea and lungs are terrestrial adaptations, and the skin is a limited surface area for small animals. Okay. Now, the skin and gill are not efficient. That's what we did study about the terrestrial environment. Also, the osmolarity of the substance which is present inside the tissues of fish as well as the frog, and also they have to maintain the water loss. So for the loss of electrolytes, okay, so skin is always should be wet. So this is the reason, to prevent the osmolarity shock, or to prevent the water loss, or to prevent the loss of electrolyte, the skin always should be wet. Meaning the skin, if the breathing skin, it should be always wet, and that should be inside the water. If you keep it outside, what will happen? The skin become dried. When the skin is dried, the more water will be lost, as well as the osmolarity. When the water is lost, and then inside the body become the more of what? The osmolarity will increase there inside the salts and everything, and that gives loss of electrolytes, and more of electrolytes will be lost, and ultimately what, the animal will die. So we have to maintain that, and survival of these animals, survival of the fittest, how these animals has adapted itself to keep the skin always wet, so, or moisture. So for those animals who's breathing through the skin, they need the oxygen as well as the gas exchange. They have to keep the skin wet. If it is dry, that's the end of it. Okay, so that's another adaptation. Now let us see about the gill, how the gill will respond to it. Now, so if I draw here, the red one which is going on the capillaries, and you can get the green where you get the cells are there now. Okay, now the blood is close to the outside environment. See, the blood is going. So this is the area in between this, right? This is the distance. So this is the outside water, right? The gill is outside water. So the close proximity, and this one is the oxygen is coming in, and then carbon dioxide is going out. So there are thin membrane separated, okay, but the blood circulation of the capillaries is moving around here. So they are very close. So blood is close to the outside environment so that they can exchange the gas. So another respiratory surface area, what we have seen before, is the tracheal tubules in insects, where you can exchange directly the oxygen and carbon dioxide, or the direct air contact. There is no hemoglobin, no blood. But in the fish, and where you have a circulatory system is established, and circulatory system to the respiratory surface area or in the gill is very minimum, so that they can easily exchange across this membrane. Okay, so how this exchange is taking place? Now let us see another scenario here. This is the very thin membrane, okay, and here the blood capillaries, where there is an extracellular space in between that space, okay, so that the oxygen which is from outside, from water, which is diffused in and then getting into the blood, and then from carbon dioxide it will go out. So we will see the process is the diffusion. You know what is diffusion? Previous classes which we have seen about diffusion. The main purpose of the physiological process, we did study some physics, osmosis and diffusions and active transports and paracellular transport, transcellular transport and all. So please recollect those definitions. The diffusion means from the higher concentration to the lower concentration. Okay. So here in the water, there is more concentration of oxygen. Okay, more. So here it is a less, because this oxygen is being used in the tissues. So what happened? The blood capillaries is less. So oxygen can diffuse in. In the blood capillaries, they are, after the metabolism, you have excess load of carbon dioxide. In the outside, water is the less carbon dioxide. Here it is more carbon dioxide. So according to the diffusion principle, from higher concentration to the lower concentration, here the higher concentration of carbon dioxide, lower concentration of carbon dioxide, it will move out. So the process is very simple. By diffusion or gas exchange is taking place. And let us see in the insects how. The insect, the air which is getting in, and these are the tracheal tubules. Okay, it's a branched, and then you have the cells. Here the cells, and then cells are there. So the oxygen and carbon dioxide, the exchange is taking place in the tracheal tubules, where the oxygen which is coming in, it goes up to the cells, and carbon dioxide coming directly, and then is get out of the cells. But this one is, I told you there is no heart or there is no circulatory system, But even then, the air circulation is being controlled by a valve here, a valve. And this valve, in the term, we won't call it as a valve here, but we call it as a spiracles. S-P-I-R-A-C-L-E-S, spiracles. So this is outside air that can go in, and then once it's gone in and the pressure, it will backflow and close it. So the exchange is taking place. Once all the exchange is taking place over inside the cells and everything, and then what will happen, the spiracles is being opened because of the skeletal movement or peristaltic movement, and this air is pushed out, so the spiracles is open, and then more it is going out the gas, and then from inside to out, and then it will open and then it will go is in. So it opens and closes depending upon the movement of the exoskeleton of those insects, and thereby the gas getting inside the tracheal tubules and then is going back, and it's controlled by spiracles of the valves, which is present at the junction of the outside to the inside tracheal tubules. This is the insects. And then the insect system, the air goes into the trachea. Smaller branches, they call it as a tracheoles. These are tracheoles. These are tracheoles, small branch. This is trachea, tracheoles, and goes directly into the cells. As I mentioned, these are things directly goes into the cell, tracheal tubules. Okay. Now let us see about the lungs. The lungs in the mammals, where also we call it as a trachea here, the air which we breathe, yeah, okay. And then this has been branched here, and this part we call it as a bronchi, B-R-O-N-C-H-I, bronchi, okay. And then the bronchi further divided into bronchioles. These are the one which is bronchiole, B-R-A-N-C-H-I-O-L-E-S. So one word, bronchioles. And this bronchioles again is ended in alveolar sac. See, these are the alveolar sac. At the end of the air channel, or the end of the tubing, or the end of bronchioles, you get alveolar sac. So it goes like this. Air through the nostrils or nose are getting into the tracheal tubules or trachea, and then is branched into bronchi, and then is going into the further branched into bronchioles, and then the bronchioles ended in alveolar sac. In the alveolar sac where the gas exchange is taking place. Okay, that's in the lungs modifications. And let us see about what happened in the alveolar sac. Now, the alveolar sac is something like a balloon. Okay, so normally it folded like this. As I mentioned before, the folding will give you what? Increasing the surface area of the gas exchange. This is alveolar sac. Okay, lung provide a huge surface area that is approximately here the 50 to 100 square meter, versus the body surface. Our body surface is a 2 square meter. But for the 2 square meters, you need 50 to 100, maybe 50 times higher, right? Of what? Of surface area of oxygen demand. So this is the amount of oxygen which is present in the outside air. We are going to see soon, but I'm giving a small calculation. Suppose there are 21% of oxygen. For 21% of oxygen, you need 50 to 100 square meter of the surface area. Suppose if you put a human in moon, where you won't get this much of oxygen there, probably you may get the 5% of oxygen, or less than, maybe 5%, maybe 4 times less than here. So what will happen in there? So this, even for the 2 meters, you need 50 times, right? So you have to have maybe 4 times size of this. Maybe you need to have at least 400 square meters of surface area, more surface area to capture, to get the gas exchange, just like living into the normal as an earth human being. Or you have to pump it out and the oxygen, and then you have to get more. perhaps if we grow more plants in moon, so we may increase the concentration of oxygen, and thereby we can live just like in, yeah, I mean, that is another thing that I just want to make sure you understand the logic in a different way. The surface area that of the respiratory surface area and body surface, that relates, so in the adaptation process. That is in future, but I want to think about it. It's a critical thinking question for you, okay? And now we will go about the single alveolar membrane. This is the folded one. Once this is being filled with the air, after the air, it will go like this, that's like a balloon, because the folded surface will become unfold, and then you will increase the surface area. So that is the part we will see the mechanism, how this air is coming, and then how this is going to elaborate what is the mechanism behind in it, okay? So the single alveolus membrane, single balloon, right? How they expand using biomechanical properties of soap bubble. Have you ever seen about the soap bubble, where you can small bubble and then a large bubble and large bubble, it's bubbling, right? So the same principle is here when you see the expand and contract of this alveolus membrane. Whenever this air is coming up, it expands, and then gas exchange is taking place, and then everything is over, then it's contract, then it's pushing back. So that's why you inhale, expand the lungs, and if you exhale, the contract of alveolus membrane. So this is something like a mechanical pump-like thing, okay? How this soap bubble, how it relates, and how that will give and boost for the gas exchange mechanism. Let's see now the anatomy here of the alveolar dimension. We will see that. Suppose if this whole thing is a capillary, I'm just drawing in a way that you should understand clearly. So capillary, if you just focus and enlarge it, this one capillary is going to have a 1 RBC diameter. So another RBC here, another RBC here, another RBC here. So red blood cell that contain, this is like a donut, right? So they put it like a donut. So the red blood cells, they have more of hemoglobin, and this diameter of RBC is 7.5 micron. I mean, that can easily fit into the capillaries. This is inside of the alveolar membrane, and this is the outside of the alveolar membrane. Otherwise, this is the air exchanges is taking place over this. In between the capillaries and to the air, there is a membrane next to the capillaries, or adjacent, just the capillary membrane. Outside the membrane, we call it as an endothelium. We call it endothelium, E-N-D-O-T-H-E-L-I-U-M, endothelium. And the thickness, okay, of this endothelium is going to be 0.04 to 0.2, 0.04 to 0.2 micron. Okay, so this one, this thickness, this is endothelium. And then after that there is a space. This space, again, call it as extracellular space. Okay, this space, this is the space. And this space is 0.03 to 0.2 micrometer. I put micrometer, micron, or micrometer. Okay, micrometer is the same. 0.03 to 0.2 micron. Okay, and then the epithelium. Below that, there's an epithelium layer, and the epithelium, which will last 0.05 to 0.3 micron. This thickness, epithelium thickness, another set of cells. This is outside. Is it okay? See, this is the RBC of the capillary, and this outside is endothelium, a space, epithelium, and then the epithelium again covered with outside a film, a thin liquid film. Very important, thin liquid film. And the film thickness is 0.01 micron or micrometer. Okay, 0.01 micron. So the alveolar membrane, the actual site of gas exchange is composed of a capillary, and the capillary diameter is 7.5 micron, the just like a RBC diameter, and then the outside the capillary membrane is made of endothelium, okay, that is 0.04 to 0.2 micron thickness. Then below that is surrounded by a space, extracellular space of 0.03 or 0.2 micrometer, and then that is surrounded by epithelium, and the epithelium and the thickness is 0.05 to 0.3, and then you have a thin film, the blue color here, this the thin film, the liquid film, and this is attached to the epithelium outside. So the air is not directly contact with the epithelium. In between that there is a thin film of liquid. Okay, so we will see what is that the function of all these. This is the anatomy now. So now the oxygen from the air, okay, it should travel to RBC. Okay, how long it will travel? When you compute this distance, the gap, and this one compute together, all combined together, the distance will move from here to here, 0.2 micrometer. Okay, 0.2 micrometer to 0.6 micron. So the lung is optimized. For example, how much distance the oxygen is traveled from outside into the bacteria. Suppose if this is a bacterium, a E. coli, okay, and this is a cell wall outside, then inside, you have the bacterium, the cytoplasm. You call it as a one protoplasm, because there is no nucleus in the bacterium, right? So you have only the DNA or chromosome is there. So from here, inside to here, from outside air, and for the bacterium, it should travel, the oxygen to travel 0.5 to 2 micron. 0.2 to 0.6, the same amount. So the physiological response here, either in the bacteria or in the human being, the distant travel between the outside air and towards the inside the cytoplasm or inside the cells, from outside air to the inside of the body or to the cell where the oxygen is capturing, is traveling is around a 0.2 to 0.6 or 0.5 to 2 micron thickness. Okay. Now, let us see about the film. What is the role of the film? The film which I showed you, it's not a movie film, but this is the film which is covered by the RBC, the capillary and endothelium, epithelium, and this is the alveolar sac. There the contact is there, right? The air is coming from the tracheal tubules. On this film, I'm talking about this liquid film, the characteristic of that. The film plays a major role in gas exchange. There's the film, they have some sort of surfactants. You know what is surfactants? Something like a detergents, okay? The soap detergent, right? So which will give a middle phase like oil and water. Though those two, the solvent won't mix, okay? Water and oil won't mix together. So if you put a soap, it can miscible. So here in this case, the same principle, we have surfactants, and the surfactants plays a major role and to reduce the surface tension. So what is the surface tension here? Again, I will ask some physics question. Surface tension is nothing but it's been produced by water molecules because the water has the higher surface tension. What is the water's surface tension if you talk about the surface tension of that one here? What is the role here in the film and surface tension? Okay, I'll put it in this way. If this is the alveolar sac and the thin film is inside, right? And if it is if excess water is there, if the film is full of water, then it cannot expand because of the higher surface tension. Suppose if you have a more of the surfactant molecule, a detergent molecule, that will enable the contracted alveolar sac into the expanded in the presence of oxygen or in the presence of air. So it can expand. So it can capture more oxygen here. More oxygen can come in. Okay. So the changes in spherical shape from the contracted to the other circular or the spherical form, we need surfactant molecule. In other words, if there is a surface tension between this inside membrane on the liquid which is present outside, the contact between the outside air and then into the membrane, if excess of water, that will affect the contraction. So you won't get this type of oxygen blown up. So you cannot open this one. That's why in some cases in pathological situation where the water accumulation in the alveolar, you have to remove the water. In most other cases, if the water excess accumulation in the lungs, unless otherwise if an emergency removal of water, then the patients will die. So we have to remove if excess of water. In other words, they also pump in some more of surfactants over there, and thereby we can eliminate that, and then it can increase more of the volume. So in naturally, we have some surfactants in that film. Okay. So and thereby it can reduce the surface tension. Okay. What is the surface tension now? Let me explain. The surface tension called ST is a cohesion. This is a definition of surface tension. It's a cohesion between one molecule of water to another molecule. Like this is one molecule of water, another molecule, another molecule, another molecule, another molecule, another molecule. So the water molecules are held together. They attract each other. They have a cohesiveness. So they can attach together. So they won't, anybody can go in and out. It gives a strong binding with each other. So that's why the attraction is more. That gives a surface tension. Because of the attraction it gives and gives a more of attachment, that gives a strength and that gives a tension. That tension is dangerous in the alveolar membrane because that will prevent the expansion of the alveolar sac. So in order to reduce the surface tension, in order to remove or in order to break the attraction between the one water molecule to the in the surface in the membrane, we need to put or inhibit the expansion of the alveolar sac. So this attraction inhibits the expansion of alveolar sac. So if you want to inhibit the surface tension, if you inhibit, then we can increase the alveolar expansion, alveolar sac expansion. Okay. In other words, I put it in this way. Suppose if this is the normal structure of alveolar, right? So it will. So if the water is present, it cannot go onto this area of expansion. It won't expand. So to break this water molecule, we have to add surfactant. So the surfactants that plays a major role are that present in the film, and these surfactants is nothing but lipoproteins. So the film contains the lipoprotein, act like a detergent, act like a surfactants, and then that enable the contracted alveolar to expand, and thereby if it expands means it gives more of oxygen gets in, and you have plenty of oxygen to breathe, and you will be all right. You are okay in a normal situation, healthy body. You have enough lipoprotein in the film, and thereby it will just like this from this, and then it will expand. So you will get more oxygen getting into the alveolar sac membrane. Okay, I hope you understand this process. And then the next one is the respiratory structures. Okay, we will see about the respiratory structures like what we have seen before in a surface area. Now respiratory surface area. Now we are going to see respiratory structures, where this is a scenario like air. From the air, the oxygen is getting in. Suppose if it is an organism, it is present inside the water, and this is the water. So what is the process of this oxygen is getting in? Oxygen is dissolved from the air to the water, and from the water to the organism body, and then body to the tissues where the metabolism is taking place, where the oxygen is acting as an electron acceptor, and the sugar breakdown or glycolysis breakdown molecule, and that produces more of carbon dioxide, and that carbon dioxide is coming to the body, and then outside the tissue to the body, and body to the water is is getting into the water, from water, and it escapes the carbon dioxide, get to the air. This is the process. Okay. So the process of the gas exchange, which it needs some adaptations now. We should know how much oxygen is there and how much can dissolve in water. Then how much get into the tissue. Then how much get used by the oxygen. So it's all proportion. If I say diffusion means the water is having not oxygen level in the oxygen is going to be less, and the air is more, so oxygen can dissolve. Oxygen can dissolve, oxygen can diffuse into the water. So the water oxygen is more than the organisms inside the alveolar sac membrane, just like as I mentioned the lungs, but here in the gills, on the tissue and respiratory surface area here in gill, and there the capillaries where the RBCs, and there the oxygen content is less, so from water to body is getting in. And then it is going to be transferred, the same diffusion process, into the tissues, and where this oxygen is going to be unloaded, and then is carry carbon dioxide back, and then back to the water, and water to the air. So now let us see. Lungs, we see the lungs, gill, trachea, skin, and size, and they have the specific environment. And now we should study about the other part, is the chemistry of gas exchange. Okay, we'll see now in a second. Okay, welcome back, and we will see now the next part of this lecture is going to be the chemistry of gas exchange, how the oxygen is getting into the tissues. We should know about the chemistry and chemistry of oxygen, and how much the pressure of oxygen present in the air, then how much pressure of oxygen which is present inside the body. So these are certain type of chemistry and basic physics or physical chemistry you should have seen in your previous classes. So I would like to you to remember those, and then we will capture in a few seconds all those details. Okay, now let's go. The chemistry of gas and this process of gas exchange, where the tissues consume of oxygen that's coming from the air. This is from the plant that uses the carbon dioxide, and in presence of sunlight produce oxygen, and oxygen is getting the air, and the air to the our body tissues. They receive oxygen through hemoglobin, and then after metabolism it releases the carbon dioxide, and the whole process, whatever happening in this, is through the diffusion process. Now I'll explain what is diffusion now. Okay, I explained earlier, but also I want to explain now to understand clearly. The diffusion is a higher concentration to a lower concentration. The movement of molecule, movement of gas from higher concentration to a lower concentration of a state. For example, if in a chamber where you are keeping a higher concentration of oxygen, and then it is being separated by a semi-permeable membrane, and it will allow only the gases from one side or from the other side. But if you keep one higher concentration there and then it's a lower concentration here, what will happen? This gas will go from higher to the lower. I mean, that is a natural way. We call it as a diffusion against the membrane. And the same principle, you just hold on to that. The same principle we are going to talk now, okay? The gas exchange. If you want to see the movement of gas from one area to the area 1 to the area 2, it depends upon certain colligative properties. It depends upon some other phenomena, some physical phenomena which is involved. The number of molecules, and then if more number of molecules, the volume is going to be more from here to here, but here there's a less volume, here less, and is a more volume. So, and also if the pressure, what is the pressure which is going to be exerted, and volume, and what temperature, will all decide how efficient this diffusion. In other words, the gas exchange is a phenomena of a physical chemical properties that depends upon the pressure of the gas, pressure of oxygen, volume of oxygen, and temperature of the environment. Okay, let us see in one by one. Before that, I want to explain about the pressure. The pressure, normally we used to call it as atmospheric pressure. What is atmospheric pressure? You got one atmospheric pressure. How do you define a simple unit, one atmospheric pressure? You know, in the atmosphere we got air, and you know the air, air has got its own pressure. So how to measure that one? So in a sea level, in an ideal gas, in sea level, this is the earth surface, and this is the sea, water there. On top of this sea, 1 square inch of a tube, if you just keep it on that, 1 square inch, okay, 1 square inch area, suppose this is a 1 square inch area, put it that way, on the sea level, the amount of air which is standing on to the column, in the amount of air which is standing on the 1 square inch, suppose the air which is present in this, suppose this is the square inch, okay, and the 1 square inch, this air column is there, right? The air which is sitting onto the earth surface, 1 square inch, this whole 1 square, how much? The whole air which is present at the top of 1 square inch, there is some pressure which is being exerted. That pressure we call it as 1 atmospheric pressure. In other words, that 1 atmospheric pressure air, which is called 14.7 pounds square inch. 14.7 pounds, okay, per square inch. So this is the air column, okay. This is 1 atmospheric air that we can define on that one. So in this, the air, the pressure in the unit of the pressure what we are giving in this is a pounds per square inch. So this amount of weight onto the square inch of the area, that gives the pressure. So the pressure, 1 atmospheric pressure, which is defined as 14.7 pounds of this air, right, which is sitting on top of how much volume, how much area it occupies per square inch area. So per square inch area, you have the air, the amount of air is 14.7 pounds. That is equivalent to 1 atmospheric pressure. So this is the definition of 1 atmospheric pressure, or the pressure in the air. Okay, so how we can define in this air and 1 atmospheric pressure, 14.7 pounds square inch. Okay, you have, what are the components of the air? Main air gas: nitrogen, oxygen, carbon dioxide, and argon. So we should define how much which is present here. Let's see the next one. So the air we breathe, okay, the air we breathe, we have a nitrogen of 78% of the air. Oxygen concentration in the air is 21% of the air in the oxygen. The argon or inert gas is 1%. For our calculation, we neglect this one, argon. So we will take the carbon dioxide, that's a 0.03%. Okay, so if you want to define this air, we have to always give the pressure as well as the volume. So this is the percentage, the amount of individual gas present in the air. Suppose if you take 100 molecules of air, 100 molecule of air molecule, I put it there, air is considered a molecule just for imaginary purpose. So 100 molecules in the air, in that 100 molecule, 78 molecule become nitrogen, 21 molecule is oxygen, and 1 molecule is argon, and carbon dioxide is 0.03 molecule in that. Okay, so that's just a proportion to understand. So each gas, each nitrogen, oxygen, argon, carbon dioxide exert its pressure, and also it has its own volume. We will define that one too. Okay, how much? before that, I want to make sure that you understand the barometer. Again, the same fraction of the gas that we will see the next one. But if you see there's a beaker of mercury, this is the mercury, Hg symbol, and I inverted a tube with a vacuum tube. So what will happen in that? The mercury, because of the pressure, atmospheric pressure, it will push, and then because of the vacuum, it will rise into the tube, vacuum tube. It will rise up to the point 760 millimeter mercury. It will rise up. And this is, again, if it is on 1 square inch, and then if you do, it acts as a 1 atmospheric pressure, ATM. Otherwise, the 14.7 pounds per square inch, or this height is 760 millimeter of mercury. And this is also another way to define the atmospheric pressure. This is the way that we used to do on barometer. Suppose the atmospheric pressure is less, what will happen? This increase will be less. If it is more, then it will increase. So that's why the barometer, weather report and other things, your pressure changes, and they can predict when it is going to rain and when it is not going to rain, and all those things will be clear. If it is of a more of a sunlight, and then the pressure is going to be low here, and then it's going to be rise. And suppose if a more of the humid air which is coming out of the atmosphere, and that gives the excess of the pressure, then what will happen? It will move up. So the barometer reading, we can predict whether our atmospheric conditions. So that's what they used to do it. Now we take that one example, and then we can calculate our individual fraction of gases, the fraction of gas pressure and partial pressure of each gas. In other words, the total gas, total atmospheric pressure, 1 atmospheric pressure is 1, okay? And or in other words, 760 millimeter of mercury, just for all the gases. If you want to have a one gas, for example, nitrogen, oxygen, in our case, carbon dioxide, as well as in the argon. So we omit argon and nitrogen, but oxygen and carbon dioxide we will take for our calculations for this class. So the amount which is present here, it is going to be as a fraction of the gas pressure of the air. So that otherwise we call it as a partial pressure of gas. Okay, partial pressure of the gas. We'll see how to calculate the partial pressure of the gas. Okay, the nitrogen, if you see the nitrogen gas, okay, the nitrogen is 78% of the air. So if this nitrogen is 78, so if the partial pressure, we call it as a capital P and small n2. I mean, but it's a small in the size. Pn2 means partial pressure of nitrogen. That is equivalent to 0.78 times 760. The 760 millimeter of mercury, right? That is the 1 atmospheric pressure, in other words. So we are calculating this, how much the partial pressure? 601 millimeter mercury for the nitrogen. For oxygen, 21% is present in the air. So if you convert that 0.21 times 760, it is going to be 159 millimeter mercury. That's the height of oxygen, or the partial pressure of oxygen. And the partial pressure of carbon dioxide, 0.0003 times 760. Okay, because in 0.03 initially, right, 0.00, so if you have a 0.003%, so if you calculate that into the partial pressure, you have to multiply by 760 millimeter of 0.0003, 30 and then 3, 760, and that gives a 0.02 millimeter mercury. So this is the partial pressure of carbon dioxide. So the volume, this is the pressure. Now we have to calculate the volume. So 1 mole of ideal gas, any gas, 1 mole, molecular weight by that volume, that's going to be the 1 mole of ideal gas. It will be 22.4 liters. This is just like a mercury, we said for the pressure 760 is a standard, and this is a constant value. 1 mole of any ideal gas will occupy 22.4 liters. In other words, if you take a substance, suppose sodium, for example, if you heat that sodium, one molecular weight of sodium, and heat it up, and just become vapor and become a volume, and that particular gas, it produces a gas, and that gas occupy 22.4 liters. That's what is an ideal gas. So in the individual gas volume in the fraction, we need to know how much oxygen volume, how much carbon dioxide volume is there in that fraction. Okay. That is going to be oxygen, individual gases, 159 mercury, okay, the air, the oxygen is a 21%, and the gas volume for the oxygen is equal to 209 ml per liter gas. And then if you have the water, inside the water, the fresh water, these are the volume which is present, which I calculated earlier, and this is the partial pressure which we calculated earlier, and this is the volume, and what 159 millimeter mercury, that's the partial pressure of oxygen present in the air, and in other words, you have a 209.5 ml per liter of the gas, or per liter of the air, you get this oxygen. So the amount which is dissolved, this is the amount which is present in the air, amount of oxygen present in the air. Now how much is dissolving in the water is going to be 6.2 ml per liter. So this is per liter of water. So this is the amount of oxygen is dissolving in fresh water. So this is the spontaneous gas diffusion which is occurring. Okay. So here it is a low in water, so it is the higher. So what will happen? Higher concentration to lower concentration, from atmospheric air to the water, it will diffuse. So that's the amount which is diffused in the water. Now from the air into the carbon dioxide, it is going to be, look at this one, partial pressure of carbon dioxide, that's on the volume is 0.3 ml, okay, and this will diffuse into water, is very highly diffusible, 0.22 ml per liter. Imagine 209 ml oxygen there in the air, but the diffusion is only 6.2 ml here for oxygen. For carbon dioxide, present in the air is 0.3 ml, but at the same time in the water it can miscible 0.22 ml can miscible. That means most of them, 90% can miscible from air to water. So carbon dioxide miscibility is more, where the oxygen miscible or the dissolving capacity is low from oxygen, from air to the water. For nitrogen, it's going to be 790 ml, which is present a higher quantity, but you get only 10.9 ml per liter only dissolved, just like above this period from the oxygen. So nitrogen solubility this much. So this is again by diffusion process it can exchange. Okay. Now let us see about the gas dissolved in water, in aqueous fluid, or in the gas dissolved in water. This will depends upon the spontaneous process I told you, spontaneously diffuse. The amount dissolved depends on several factors. That's depend on type of gas, depend on temperature, and it depends upon the pressure, which is present, the partial pressure, and also environmental temperature, and present depends upon the salt concentration. You follow now? So if I would like to know the oxygen solubility in cold region to the warm region, from Texas to the Canada, what's the amount of oxygen solubility? That's what we want to know about it. Okay. If more oxygen, if cold temperature, more oxygen is soluble. Okay. And also, if it is a fresh water than the seawater, more oxygens can soluble. So that is the rule we found. Okay. Now, fresh water solubilize more gas, that oxygen, carbon dioxide, than the salt water. So I put it like this: fresh water solubilize more, greater than salt water solubility. In other words, cold water is greater than the warm water, the solubilized gases, the oxygen as well as the carbon dioxide. So that is the reason when you get a high catch on the northern Pacific rim, where you go on for the fishing, northern side you get more varieties of fish than compared to the southern region of the warm climates over there. So the organisms which demand more oxygen are the larger fish like a whale and other things, and which can live only in the northern part of or the colder region where you get more oxygen when compared to the southern region. It cannot survive. Otherwise, you have to pump more of oxygen to keep it on the same level of oxygen which is present in the northern side. So I'll ask some questions, depending upon that, critical thinking questions. Which water is going to be have more? Suppose in the salt water is going to be the less oxygen solubility when compared to the fresh water, than vice versa. So you should be able to understand those questions. Now let us see about the how the carbon dioxide is going to play a major role. Okay. The blood, they contain carbon dioxide because carbon dioxide is being carried by the blood and hemoglobin, which is present as a bicarbonate ion. Okay. How this bicarbonate ion is being formed? We will see that one. Bicarbonate ion is maintaining the pH of our body. That's very important. You should understand that. Bicarbonate ion is maintaining the pH of our body. The speed of reaction, okay, how combination, carbon dioxide combined with the water, it form what? Carbonate, hydrogen, H2CO3. And this is called a carbonic acid. Carbonic acid. And this carbonic acid, again, has been converted to the bicarbonate. So the reaction is something like, this is slow reaction, carbon dioxide miscible to water. It's a slow process. But carbonic acid to bicarbonate is a fast one. Okay. The reaction is so fast. But in the reversible also it's possible. Bicarbonate to the carbonic acid and carbonic acid to carbon dioxide and water. That is also possible. Let us see how that is going to happen in the reaction. Carbon dioxide present in the blood as a bicarbonate ion. Carbon dioxide dissolves in water, okay, this bicarbonate, and this is a reversible reaction. See, carbon dioxide, water is a reversible reaction making a unstable. This carbonic acid is the most unstable, H2CO3 is the most unstable, and then immediately it forms, what will happen? It is converted into H plus ion and bicarbonate ion, H plus and HCO3 minus. So this is proton and bicarbonate ion is a negative charge. Okay. In blood, if you give this carbon dioxide and bicarbonate and carbonic acid and bicarbonate level, the ratio is 1 carbon dioxide, 0.001 carbonic acid, and 20 is your bicarbonate ion. So imagine in the blood level, the ratio is 1 is to 0.001 is to 20, meaning the most stable is bicarbonate ion and not the carbonic acid. In other words, this reaction is a reversible reaction which can produce from carbon dioxide, water to bicarbonate, or from bicarbonate plus proton to form carbonic acid and back, the backward reaction to water and carbon dioxide. Okay. So what happened in the tissue? Carbon dioxide and water, carbonic acid okay, and it forms bicarbonate. In the tissue is formed the bicarbonate, okay, and this bicarbonate now is being taken by the hemoglobin, and then back onto this same process is going to repeat it and produce carbon dioxide, and this carbon dioxide is going to get out of the lung. So that process is a gas exchange. That's an interesting process. We will see how that is going to happen. Before that, I want to know about the local acidification process. Local acidification that can shift, because when you see the tissue, you get the proton, H plus form. If the H plus is nothing but a proton, if more proton is developed or produced in the tissue as a matter of more of metabolism, so it induces the pH changes. You know, what is pH? It is the negative logarithm of hydrogen ion concentration. If more hydrogen ion concentration there, then the pH is going to be low. So here it changes the pH, and that facilitates the process go backward and then getting into that process. Let us see how that is going to happen. Local acidification of the tissues can shift the balance of the local drop of pH because of this higher concentration of H plus, and that acidification shift towards the left and produce the carbon dioxide. If excess, normally the carbon dioxide and water which is formed, I'm just in the forward reaction, carbon dioxide, water, I'm talking about only the forward reaction, carbonic acid to the bicarbonate reaction, okay, and then it gives more of this. Where the carbon dioxide is coming from, and carbon dioxide is coming from the metabolism product of the glycolysis, Krebs cycle, and then whatever the food you eat and everything is metabolism, and then using the oxygen and then the electron acceptor for oxygen, water is being produced on the electron transport chain, and then what will happen, these both together to form a carbonic acid, and then slowly it build up the carbonic acid because of more of the product, metabolic product is comes in, more carbonic acid is unstable, and that is going to bicarbonate. If more ion is there, when a particular concentration is developed, the bicarbonate ion and H plus proton, it shifts the pH. If it shifts the pH, then it switch on backwards. It will switch on the backward reaction to form carbonic acid, from carbonic acid back to carbon dioxide and water, and then this carbon dioxide is being eliminated. So that is the ideal way, the local acidification. Here the local acidification at the area of the tissues level where it is necessary to remove the bicarbonate in the form of carbon dioxide in the lung tissues. Okay, balance, local drop of pH, acidification. The local acidification can shift the balance of the reversible reaction. This is a reversible reaction in an equilibrium. It can shift the local acidification, shift backward to remove this carbon dioxide. That you should understand. And carbon dioxide is a high level, right? And that becomes lower the pH, and then carbon dioxide released from the lungs. That is the ultimate aim. Okay. Now let us see on the equilibrium shift. In a matter of fact, in the air, oxygen is coming in, and then oxygen can go out. If 100 molecules of gas which is coming in, 100 molecules comes in, irrespective of the concentration. You will get only this low quantity of oxygen can solubilize when compared to the nitrogen, and then but more percentage of carbon dioxide is mixed up. But what will happen when they go out? Also, it goes 100 molecule, because excess of carbon dioxide and excess of nitrogen and less of oxygen is escaping. But when it comes in, more of oxygen is solubilized. In other words, at the surface of lung, net movement of gases is the same. Net movement, 100 molecules of gas molecule, 100 is, net movement, the amount, the proportion is going to be the same. But not the concentration of the gases, individual gases moving in or move out, because when you dissolve, more oxygen is dissolved. When they go out, less oxygen is going out. So that's the process. Okay. So the reversible reaction. Now this should understand clearly for what you have seen like a reversible case. Okay, this is a compound A. This is a concept. Okay, A, and it's converted to compound B, and then this compound B is converted to compound C. And it's also reversible. It can also go from B to A and C to B, but certain conditions only. Okay, and an equilibrium. This is going to be A to B, B to C, and C to B, and C to A. It is maintained. It's going here to and fro. It goes here and here to here, because that's equilibrium. Now you want to shift this equilibrium. Suppose if you add more A, what will happen if you add more A? If you add more A, the A will be more, and then it shifts the reaction forward. So all A should be converted to B, and B is converted to C. So that it pushes, if you add A, it pushes the equilibrium forward. I'll put it another way. Suppose if I remove the C from the concentration or the equilibrium, okay? If I constantly remove, suppose this is a box, okay? If I remove C, more C, I'm removing it, meaning more B is converted to C, and then there's a less B, and then more A is converted to B. So again, that pushes the forward reaction. So either addition of A or removal of C will push the reaction forward, that A to C. Now, imagine the other way, opposite. You add more C, excess C you are adding in this direction. What will happen? More C, if more C, it should be equilibrium, so the reversible reaction, it will push the reaction backward to form more B, and then more B to A, and thereby it can maintain that equilibrium. So now, if you remove A from this reaction, if you remove slowly remove A, that high demand of A, the B is converted to A, and then what will happen? The B is more demand, and then C is being converted into B, and B to A. So it again drives the reaction from backward. So either the addition or removal, we can adjust the flow of the reaction, either forward flow or backward flow. That's why in the respiration, we are constantly consuming oxygen in one side and constantly removing the carbon dioxide. Imagine the same situation. We are adding oxygen, drives the reaction one direction, okay, and then we are removing in the other. Suppose if we are removing from this, from the carbon dioxide from our system, that drives from backward reaction. So addition on one side and it's coming back the other side. Like respiration, oxygen is consumed, carbon dioxide is being released after taking out. So the respiration in the hemoglobin, oxygen is being added, it's changing its shapes, and the same hemoglobin will go and and this it go in the tissues, and then from the tissues, the hemoglobin is going to combine with the carbon dioxide, and then this is being eliminated to air. So if you imagine the same principle, how in an equilibrium, a reversible reaction, how one molecule is converted to another molecule, that molecule is converted to the product, and then the addition or removal of this molecule can shift the reaction either forward or backward. So this is the part you should understand up to this point. And then we will discuss in our next class and then further about the mechanism.